Canon just released a bunch of firmware updates. Did the Canon EOS R5 finally get that 30-minute record limit lifted? And what about the R7 and the R10? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. Canon released a series of firmware updates today for several cameras. First up is the Canon EOS R10 with firmware 1.2. Sadly, nothing groundbreaking with the Canon EOS R10. In fact, it's a very minor update. It does fix a rare issue where the camera will crash with error code 70 when capturing small objects. So just don't capture any small objects, or just go ahead and apply the firmware update. Now, this firmware update does provide a whole bunch of other minor updates, but they're so minor than this error code 70, which happens in rare instances. I guess if you're shooting ants or field mice, maybe then you might get the error code 70. But these minor issues are so small that you won't even find them in the release notes. It just says other minor issues. Also getting an update is the Canon EOS R7. And again, as you can see by the release notes here, it's the same boring update. It fixes that issue on rare instances where the camera can crash with error code 70 and other minor issues that, again, are too minor to mention. And this is where I want to use the opportunity to remind you, always read the release notes. In here, you're going to find very valuable information, such as, well, if this is firmware 1.2 and you haven't applied a firmware update in the past, if you go ahead and apply this firmware update, do you have to apply other firmware updates, or is this update cumulative? All that information is going to be in the release notes. And one other word of caution, always wait a week or two before applying the update. Why the wait? Well, during that time, if there are any issues where the camera might brick, and yes, that has happened, queue up firmware 1.4 with the Canon EOS R6. It did brick it, although temporarily you had to remove the battery a couple of times, but that would get it working again. So always read the release notes and wait a week or two, unless it's something major that's going to fix an issue that's affecting your workflow. Canon did provide a firmware update for one other camera, and that's a Canon EOS R3, a camera that sells for $59.99 and is kind of the substitute teacher for the Canon EOS R1, kind of replacing the 1DX Mark III, a DSLR, with a mirrorless version. So what did we get in this firmware update? Did we get a bunch of major enhancements and fixes? Yeah, no. So once again, you're looking at the release notes, and I'm not using the same screenshot as I used for the other cameras. This is the screenshot from the Canon EOS R3. It's firmware update 1.3, and I don't know why they even bothered. It gets the same fix as the R7 and the R10, the one that I didn't even bother to mention because it's so boring, and that's the user def on picture style can now be selected in Cloud RAW image processing settings. So if you're not doing anything with Cloud RAW image processing, then yeah, you can pretty much skip this firmware update for the Canon EOS R3, although, yeah, there are some minor updates also you might get in this. And this is one of those firmware updates where I tend to look at it and say, well, look, if it's nothing affecting me, then I'll just hold out, because whenever you apply a new firmware update, a new software update, you're always introducing other minor bugs and issues. So I'd rather stick with what I know, unless, of course, the known knowns are really annoying, than roll the dice and take my chances at some more unknown unknowns. So 3 firmware updates for the Canon EOS R10, the R7, which were announced just a couple of months ago, and of course the Canon EOS R3. And I love firmware updates. I think since 2020, Canon's been very aggressive at releasing regular firmware updates. The Canon EOS R5 has gotten something like over 10 firmware updates, and the Canon EOS R6 has also received a lot of firmware updates. But the R10, the level of enhancements that this camera's gotten, from different frame rates to getting Canon Log 3, to better autofocus, to being able to shoot unlimited in various modes such as 8K oversample, 4K, 8K RAW, a really huge update. So when we see these 1.2 and 1.3 updates to the R7, the R10, and the R3, it might seem like a bit of a Debbie Downer. It's like, oh, what is Canon doing? They're not giving us the updates we're looking for. But we really should look at it this way, as, you know, Canon once again is continuing to update these cameras on a regular basis, making sure they don't go stale. And I think that's a very good thing. You just have to look at some other manufacturers to see that, well, not all of them get the love. Lumix, Panasonic, well, they're always updating their cameras as well. And I think this is where Canon kind of copied that strategy. Let's provide regular updates so people don't feel like their cameras are getting stale. And then probably halfway through the life cycle, kind of pull back a little bit so people start looking towards the new cameras, the refresh. But Sony, I don't know what it is with Sony. They produce some very good cameras, and their cameras sell very, very well. So maybe their strategy is working for them. But when it comes to firmware updates, Sony generally doesn't release firmware updates unless they're trying to fix something major. The A7S III has got some really good video capabilities in that camera, but some of the other cameras coming out recently have had some enhancements that are they're so easy to carry over to the A7S III, but Sony's just saying, yeah, nope, that's the camera we released. Those are the feature set. If you want more improved features from this camera, well, then go ahead and buy this camera. That's their methodology, that's their approach, that's their framework. But back to the section on future firmware updates, because if I don't address this, I'm going to get comments asking about the future of the Canon EOS R5. Are we going to get that 30-minute record limit lifted? And this is kind of one of those yes and no. It's definitely going to be lifted. But after about 2.5 years, with some of the major updates and enhancements we've seen to this camera in firmware updates, now at firmware 1.6, I think it's highly unlikely we're going to get that 30-minute record limit lifted in this camera. But I think it's a guaranteed take it to the bank. If I'm wrong on this, I'll eat my own hair. The Canon EOS R5 Mark II isn't going to have that 30-minute record limit, or it's not that they're going to remove the record limit. What I'm seeing in a lot of cameras like the R3 and the R6 Mark II is that that record limit has moved from 30 minutes to 6 hours. I don't know what kind of conversation Canon was having in their boardrooms for them to say, yeah, we got to remove that 30-minute record limit. That guy on the ordinary filmmaker and camera conspiracies are constantly raking us over the coals over this. Let's get rid of it. We don't need it. And you would think they would say, yes, let's get rid of it. But what guy would just put his hand up and say, you know what, boss, let's just move it out to 6 hours. What is it about 6 hours? Why on earth would you do that? But that's the case. I've never shot for 6 hours. Normally I go for 1 or 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours max. But going to 6 hours, as far as I'm concerned, is good enough as unlimited, because if you're going to be shooting that long, you're going to be doing other things with your gear. You're going to be using external monitors. You're going to be using external storage. You're going to be using external power, external everything. That's just absolutely crazy. So that 30-minute record limit, sadly, I don't think we're going to see it fixed in firmware updates, regardless of the reason, but we are going to see it in future models because, look, the cheapest cameras, the R10, it's gone. The R7, it's gone, or extended to 6 hours. The R3, it's gone. The R6 Mark II, it's gone, well, extended to 6 hours. Every new camera since the R3 has had that 30-minute record limit either gone or extended out to 6 hours. So really good news. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest news and rumors or the next firmware update coming out for your favorite Canon camera or Nikon or Sony, if they happen to release one, well then please go ahead and subscribe and choose all notifications. Now subscribing helps me. The more subscribers I get, the more gear I get sent to review. And by choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video, you'll get notified so that way you can stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors. That saves you from scrubbing all the latest Twitter feeds, RSS feeds, websites, YouTube channels, books, prints, you name it. I cover off all the major camera gear, all the major brands, all the major models, news and rumors, and I even do reviews. So all right here in one spot, I save you the time. So please subscribe and choose all notifications. But that's it. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a happy Thanksgiving in the US, and we'll see you again soon.